Welcome to Magical Books for Kids, a podcast sponsored by Magic Everywhere, Inc., a company based in Florida. Hosted by Michael John Sullivan, this is your place to hear the very best children's stories and an opportunity to get to know your favorite authors. Now, here is Michael John Sullivan.
Welcome to Magical Books for Kids. I'm Michael John Sullivan. Again, thank you for joining us for another free podcast. This is free on all platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and our website, magiceverywhereinc.com. We're happy to have again children's author Cherise Arthur. She lives in Oregon and has worked in education for the past 15 years. She is the author of Sierra and Star, a wonderful story about a young girl, Sierra, and her pony Star. Cherise has always had a passion for horses and photography. As a young girl, she lived in a rural area, and her family had horses, cows, chickens, dogs, cats, and even bunnies. She would spend many hours with the animals on the farm and grew up to have a love mostly for horses and ponies. She started riding horses again about 6 years ago. She currently rides a wonderful mare named Bear, who she created a great relationship with. She's also a member of the SCBWI and the Willamette Riders Group. She has started a few Facebook group pages to help writers who have animals in their children's books, to help them market their own books and help to network with other children's books or book authors. She is learning a lot about being a self-published author and is enjoying meeting authors locally and also online from all over the world. She has been on a few podcasts to help promote her book. Her book should be on Audible soon. And she has a new book that is coming out in early 2022 called Bella and the Queen's Ponies, and it will be available through Ingram Sparks. She's also producing a coloring book and also a CD audio for children with reading disabilities. She's excited to have 4 independent bookstores already interested in carrying her book once it's published, and she's going to be reaching out to people in Australia, New Zealand, and England. Cherise, thank you again for joining us here on Magical Books for Kids.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to hear from you again.
Well, the last time we spoke to you, you were doing quite a bit. You, of course, have done several Facebook group pages, so you're interacting with writers and helping them with their books. How is that going so far with interacting with the other writers online?
Actually, it's been quite amazing. As you know, with my first book, Sierra and Star, as a first time, writer and doing a book on my own, there was a lot. The learning curve is huge for anyone that wants to write a book. And I learned a lot. And what was wonderful is I find that writers are I'm meeting these people online. They don't know me and I don't really know them. And we're just basically interacting online. And they're so supportive, so helpful. And I just think that writers are really a unique group of people that are willing, even if they don't know you in person, they're willing to step up and say, hey, here's an idea, here's a suggestion. And so that's why after I started getting into the process with the first book, decided I think I'm going to create a couple of Facebook sites where I can help other authors as well. Because it felt really good to me to have support from authors. And I thought, if I can, put up a page for people that are writing similar books like I am, then we're kind of creating a network, and it's great support for each other.
And I found that online, there's usually groups that are together, and what they do is they support each other. And it can range anywhere from a couple of people to quite a few people, 20 to 30 people. So I've seen people certainly market and promote their books very successfully. So that's obvious. That's a big part of being self-employed writer. So let's first of all find out what inspired you to start writing. Was there any particular books that you read as a child, or was there a particular author that inspired you?
I think probably my first inspiration was my grandmother. Her name is Edna Ferrier. As she became older, I realized, I guess I didn't think about this, but she had written a children's book for her grandchildren. And she illustrated it like on the side of the manuscript. She typed it, on a on an older typewriter. And then she had illustrated it on the side. And I found it later in life and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I thought I knew my grandma really well, but I didn't remember this story. But once I read the story, it was about us on the farm that we grew up on and a peacock that she owned. And so that kind of inspired me, the fact that, she was a writer. And then I've always personally, was the kind of student that writing was my strength. I like history. I like doing research. And some of the books that I enjoyed when I was younger were biographies. So I loved going to the library as a kid and pulling out biographies. One that really sticks in my mind for some reason is Will Rogers. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was a philosopher.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Will Rogers is certainly very familiar to me.
Right. And my father I don't know if the correlation, my father, his family were originally from Oklahoma. I never lived in Oklahoma, but for some reason as a kid, I was attracted to his story. And even now, today, when I read things that he wrote about, a lot of it, you could read it today and think it was still the kind of things that he wrote about, like politicians and things that are going on in the world. You would think, well, geez, what he wrote was still relevant today.
So what was like, did you have like a favorite book? For me, growing up, I always inundated myself with sports books. I could read any kind of book if it was sports. Other books kind of bored me. Then as I got older, I got interested in reading about Charles Dickens and Edgar Allan Poe and people like that, Ernest Hemingway as well. So they particularly struck me as authors that I love to read about, not just their biographies, but also their stories as well. So was there a particular book, an author that sort of resonated with you?
Probably when I was younger, I kind of resonated toward anything to do with like cowboys and also horses, anything to do with horses. So Marguerite Henry, she wrote a lot of books about the horses on the East Coast. The Misty books, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with those.
Yep, sure.
My Friend Flicka, Black Beauty, those type of genre, because I think you had mentioned earlier, I grew up on a farm and we had ponies, so
Right.
anything to do with horses. As I got older, Jane Austen, huge Jane Austen fan. I love that era, and her writing and the fact that, she was kind of, a woman's voice during that time as a writer was not real normal. So I really enjoy her books.
Yeah, it's interesting, these particular authors. You mentioned Jane Austen, and I mentioned Charles Dickens and Hemingway. I mean, Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol back in 1839, right? And geez, we're in 2021. It's like almost 200 years old. And it's just as effective today as as I'm sure it was back then. So it appears that, like, if you read a darn good story, it lasts forever. That's the most amazing part about books, and especially children's books as well. Children's books have lasted over the years itself. So how do you come up with the concepts? Now, obviously, I could take a guess on this one. You grew up on a farm, you love animals. So yeah, the concepts are coming through your actual real experience. Is that the way you develop your story concepts?
Yeah, my first book, it's funny. My first book, I think it really has a lot to do. I mean, it's fictional, obviously, but when I look at the illustrations now, it really reminds me of a particular horse I had as a child. And so I think that was kind of the background for that one. Now, for my new book, Bella and the Queen's Ponies, it takes place in England. And I had the opportunity to go to France and England back in the summer of 2018. And I've became really interested in the Dartmouth Ponies and started doing a lot of research and then learned about this incredible, it's not a forest, they call it woods. It's called the Whisman Woods. And it's in Dartmoor, England, just out of Devon. And a lot of authors have written about this era, about this area. And I just started thinking about the area and thinking about the ponies and all the history. And I thought I could create like a fairy tale about this area with the ponies, but put like an environmental bent to it, because part of the issue with the Dartmoor ponies is that they're very endangered. There's not many left. And then in the Whisman Woods, I was just reading recently where they're trying to limit people in there because it's very, very old. I mean, it goes back to like, before Christ. It's not the oldest woods in the world, but it's one of the oldest in that area. And it's very unique. The landscape there is very unique. And so I did a lot of research about the landscape, and I did a lot of research about the ponies. And then I came up with this kind of mystical, magical adventure that happens with this little girl that meets a magical herd of Dartmoor ponies. And it's within, the story takes in within the Whisman Woods.
Is there any reason why they're becoming endangered? Any particular reason they've have found out why that's happening?
With the woods or with the ponies?
With both. Why?
Well, the ponies, the history I learned, during World War II, the ponies have been around a long time as well. I mean, we go way back. And they were used during the wartime in the mines. So they would use them to pull carts, and they actually sadly used a lot of them. They ate them, during the war because times were pretty tough. And yeah, I know, it's like horrible. But what's happening now is there are Dartmoor ponies, and like there's farms here in the US. I've learned that with my research. There's some in Canada. They're specifically related to Dartmoor, England. That's where they, came from originally. They're considered wild ponies, but because they live on the moor, but they're actually owned by local farmers. And what they do is they let them out on the moor, and then they bring them in, and they have this roundup. And it's like this time of year, it just happened back in September. And what they do is they round up the stallions and the mares and the babies, and then they're sold at auction. And sadly, from what I was reading, and I don't know if this is still happening or not, but the ones that they don't feel will sell, they put them down. And then the farmers, then the ones they keep, during the summer, and most of the year, spring and summer, they're out on the moor. So people actually go to this area just to see these ponies. But there's a disease now that you're not supposed to touch them. You're not supposed to feed them. There's a disease called strangles, and I'm just learning about that. It's something that they can get that's it can be really bad for them, and it can kill them. So they're trying to, they want people to come there to see the ponies, but they want people to respect the fact that, they are wild, so to speak. And the area, is a beautiful area. And I think the Whisman Woods as well. I think people are so enamored with the fact that it's such a unique woods. I mean, nothing like you and I would see here in the States. It's mostly
Right.
the trees are thousands of years old.
Mm.
The mystery behind it is fascinating. A lot of like the droids used to do, like way back in the day, they would do different ceremonies in the woods. So a lot of the locals won't go there at night because they feel that it's dangerous because of the folklore. And The Hounds of Baskerville, I don't know if you remember that book.
Yes.
That's based on the Whisman Woods. And these hounds, supposedly the ghosts, live in the Whisman Woods. So my story is more, it's not scary. It's for children. It's more got an environmental bent to it as a moral about the importance of, um, trying to save the ponies, and then also the importance of how we treat our forests and our woods as human beings. Like, it, so many people don't think about, how old they are and like what we're doing by going into them. We have to be gentle, because if we keep treating the earth the way we're treating it, the things that have been here for millions and millions of years are going to be lost. And so
Right.
I think that's an important story for children to understand, that, we have this history of our planet and of all these beautiful places. And if we as humans don't take the time to respect that and treat it right, we're just, as human beings, we just really need to teach our children the importance of environmentally protecting the earth,
Yeah, well, we only have one, right? At least that's what we know.
That's
Though
right.
even though they're trying to think about like perhaps inhabit Mars. Maybe that'll be for our grandchildren or great grandchildren. For them,
Not for you and I.
no, it won't be for us. No, it was probably by the time we got there, we'd be off in the La La Land somewhere. But yeah,
Right.
yeah. But you're right about the whole thing. I never thought about it until you just mentioned it. Yeah, we got to treat the woods and things like that, and with respect. It's sort of like that's their home, that's their inhabitant.
Mhm.
Those horses, that's their home. Why
Mhm.
would we do? Yeah, why would we do anything to ruin their home or soil their home, so to speak?
Because
So we
human beings are very selfish by nature, and I think that's part of our problem
right, and it's
in
probably
today's
education
world.
too. You mentioned
Yeah,
education. If we educate our children early on that this is important, they'll grow up with that respect. So maybe that's a starting point. Sometimes adults, they're in their own habits, they're in their own narrow-mindedness, and let's face it, we all do. We all have sometimes this. We look at things and we've been conditioned to think for such a long time about things. So maybe if we just learn to respect we should respect every part of the planet that we have. First of all, we should do everything. It's the whole thing about climate change and all that. I always say this to my daughter, as I said, it's not even a question about that. It's a question, what can we do to make sure that the next generations can enjoy this planet? That's all.
correct.
It doesn't matter whether you believe there's climate change or not. The question is, how can we make it better for the next generations that are coming along? Because it would be a selfish act not to think that way.
Mhm.
We're basically loaning time. Basically, we're loaning a space and loaning a time here. Because there's many more. Let's hope there's many more generations to come. So this is a wonderful idea about a book. Now, would you like to read a few pages from it just to give a sample of it? And again, we're talking to children's author Cherise Arthur. She's written the book Bella and the Queen's Ponies, and it's going to be available on Ingram Sparks, and it'll be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. That'll be all in early 2022, as well as in some bookstores. So why don't you read a few pages just to give us a feel on what this particular book will be about?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll read a few pages here and kind of gives you the intro of kind of what's happening with the book. Bella was in the Whisman Woods with her mom and dad for a fun day of bird watching and adventure. As Bella's mom and dad admired the beautiful birds in the trees, Bella noticed something out of the corner of her eye. She saw a magical light glowing on the path that went into the woods. She turned away and started to follow the light. Hey, little girl, where are you going? Bella heard this little voice coming from the trees. She looked down and noticed a very small pixie hovering next to a treehouse. I'm out for a walk in the woods, Bella said to the pixie. The pixie did not look happy. Well, you need to go down that path over there if you need to find your way out, said the very grumpy pixie. Thank you, Bella said with a smile. Pixies did not like humans, and the pixie had sent her the wrong way, deeper into the woods. The sun was shining bright through the trees. Bella could feel the warmth of the sun on her arms as she slowly walked along the path. As Bella walked around the bend, she stopped in her tracks. She saw the most beautiful Dartmoor pony she had ever seen. Hello, little girl, said the pony said.
Mhm.
Bella's eyes widened in amazement. A talking pony? Hello, my name is Clarissa, and yes, I talk, and I'm part of the magical herd of ponies that live here in the Whisman Woods. Bella was stunned. Would you like to go on an adventure with me? Clarissa asked Bella. Bella loved adventures. Yes, I would like that, Bella nodded, and she slowly followed Clarissa down the path. And that's kind of the first couple of pages of
Yeah, I
the
love that
start of the
idea.
story.
Yeah, that's, and as I said, it's an educational bent to it too, as you learn about this particular part of England and everything like that, and the woods and the mystery of the woods, and of course about the horses, these unique horses. And I love that,
And
yeah,
there's a
I love that you gave it a personality too. That's a great part about children's books. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say yes, and as the adventure continues, so Clarissa is the Dartmoor pony that she meets, and then there's some other magical animals in the story. There's a talking owl, a
Oh,
very wise owl.
mhm.
There's singing mice, um, and there's a queen, and the queen's name is Lillian, and she's a very central character to the story. And she's the one that basically takes Bella under her wings, so to speak, in the adventure and makes the adventure very magical, but yet is storytelling to Bella in the story. So it's a story basically of storytelling. And Bella learns in her adventure the importance of protecting the Dartmoor ponies, but also the importance of keeping a secret, because this whole adventure is a secret, because they don't want people to know about this magical herd in the Whisman Woods, because this is Bella's, adventure. And then the queen also tells her about how she will keep her safe while she's with her and will protect her. And it's just got a beautiful world to this story. And the illustrations are being done by a woman who lives in New York. Her name is Catherine Paris. This is her first book that she's illustrated, and she's an extraordinary artist. And so I'm so excited to have the book complete and out on Ingram Sparks probably in January.
What made you decide to go through Ingram Sparks? We recently did that with our book, The Lizard Who Loves a Blizzard. We decided, all right, let's go through Ingram Sparks. Let's hear what your reasons are. But I'm sure they're probably a lot similar to ours.
Yes. Well, with my first book, I went through Amazon, and that was a pretty easy process. And I think a lot of people, because of the cost, you're not putting anything out. They think, well, this is the easy way to go. But I think what I've learned is, like you with your book, I want to distribute my book in the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and possibly Germany. And Ingram Sparks, will distribute. And then my local bookstore, which is carrying my first book, I had a nice conversation with her. And when you say Amazon, that's kind of a dirty word to them, because Amazon, Amazon being a monopoly on not only, books, but also Audible. They also own Audible. So I learned a lot with the first book, and I just personally feel like you do with Ingram Sparks, that the platform, being able for the book buyers to go directly onto the Barnes and Noble book site. And she pulled up on her computer and showed me. She says, yeah, so I'll just pull up Barnes and Noble, and then it shows all the books, that Barnes and Noble carries. And then they can just go on and order your book. You don't have to mail it directly to an independent. So like we were talking about, you save those costs on having to ship your book. And me personally, I just think it's worth the investment. It's worth the investment to buy your own ISBN number. It's worth the investment to go with Ingram Sparks, because personally, I feel that their platform's better if this is something that you're going to be doing professionally. It's just, what I've learned, it's the best way to go.
Right. And I think as we're finding out, and I've had a chance to speak to a couple of publishers in the last couple of weeks, they're finding it very hard to find paper, believe it or not, to print. Print books are back. It appears
Right.
ebooks are not as popular as they once were. I don't know if it's because of the pandemic or something like that. Audible books are red hot now.
Yeah.
And they're finding, the publishers, that they're having to delay their releases. These are regular publishers, delay their releases 3 to 6 weeks because they just don't have they don't have the paper to print these books on because of the supply shortage.
I think it's the supply, it's the supply chain. Like out here in Oregon, I've heard from people that are building homes, like lumber prices were horribly high.
Yeah, and they finally dropped, thank goodness.
Yeah. But I just think with, the pandemic hasn't helped, obviously.
No.
The supply chain has slowed everything down. So everything's kind of being delayed. For writers, it's been great because we've had time to write. And
that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
We've had time to write, but now, like I'm finding myself, trying to get all my marketing done and get all that done so that once we've got everything to go, I'm just ready to go. But COVID's been tough on a lot of businesses.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And a lot of people, I feel blessed to have a good job. And, I work in education, so, it can be a little nerve wracking with going back and COVID. And I think in the first 3 weeks of school, we've had over 850 cases of COVID between staff and students.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah. So, it's not gone away.
They are declining overall. And of course, this recording, of course, is going to come out end of November. So who knows what it'll be at the end of November. So we're always 6 weeks ahead for our podcast. But the last thing I read was that cases are down and we're close to herd immunity. So I'm going to knock on wood and I'm going to say my prayers that that's the case. And that
I just pray every night that people will just get the vaccine. It's like I've had my 2 doses and I've got older relatives, and that's the last thing I want to be concerned about is,
the sad part is, I know a lot of people have gotten the vaccine. I've gotten mine, but I've known a lot of people who've gotten it and passed away too.
Yeah.
So it's what it is. Nobody knows anything until somebody knows something.
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to it. So, we certainly wish everybody the best of health. That's what it comes down to.
For sure. We all have to take care of ourselves.
Exactly. So, all right. So, Cherise Arthur, you are, of course, the publisher and the author of Sierra and Star, and you have a new book coming out, Bella and the Queen's Ponies, and it will be through Ingram Sparks, which means that it will be distributed online as well as in bookstores and everything. And so you said you have spoken or have gotten some positive feedback from independent bookstores. It appears that independent bookstores are willing. This is what I've also heard, okay, because of the shortage of paper, there's a shortage of books and toys out there because the ports in Shanghai, this is from watching business channels a lot.
Right.
Shanghai and Los Angeles, they're so backed up. There's a shortage of truckers as well that to transport this stuff across the country. So there is a shortage of books and toys now heading into the Christmas season. And this is airing late November, this particular podcast. So these books are available if you're interested for them for holiday gifts.
Right.
So that's something to look into. So early next 2022, and then you're looking at a CD audio for children with reading disabilities. Now, how did you come up with that? That's a wonderful idea, first of all.
Well, I've had the opportunity in my 15 plus years of working in education of working with special ed students, and I reached out to some people on Facebook and just put the idea out there and said, do you think, in the back of my mind, I thought it was a good idea, but I just wanted to get some, feedback. And I said, do you think that putting this out for children that, either have reading disabilities or who are blind, because obviously blind children can't read, or students who might be, dyslexic, or, that don't like to read. I know some people would rather listen than read. And so I got some really good feedback. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this, because I just feel like that those kids, sometimes we just assume we can go to a bookstore and get a book and read it. I mean, most average people, but you don't think about the kids who either struggle with reading. Like working in education, we have a lot of students who are learning English because they have a second language. And so I just thought that would be another way to support the story, and to also to support kids who have these disabilities, and give them it's an option for them,
Right.
as opposed. And they were also doing a coloring book, and there again, authors suggested that to me. I didn't even think about that. They were looking at some of my images that I was posting, and I was like, that's a great idea. So
Yeah,
we're taking the
Mhm.
line drawings, the original line drawings, and we're gonna create a coloring book, which I'm super excited about that too.
Right. I noticed that the authors that we're having on, I wouldn't say every author, but a lot more than usual than the past year, are utilizing the coloring books. But you got the sketches, you get the original sketches of the
Mhm.
illustrations and everything like
Right.
that. So that makes sense that it could be provided as an extra incentive. And coloring is very therapeutic. I mean, coloring books were very
Yeah.
big during the pandemic. People don't realize that. It wasn't just kids coloring.
Oh, I know. There's some amazing coloring books out for adults, and I have actually bought a couple myself because it is very therapeutic.
It is, yes, yes. And maybe I won't color in a book, but I do color on my on the pieces of
Keep
paper
your
there.
Crayolas out.
Like, yeah, little doodles,
Yeah.
that type of thing. I can't draw. I wish I could draw. I thought about taking courses and everything, but thinking, geez, if I ever took a course,
Well,
like I said, I could draw a Mickey Mouse, little 2 ears, big head, I could do
I
stuff
feel the
like that.
same way. I mean, I consider myself a writer, and I
Yeah.
love art. I mean, I just
I
love
love
art.
Yeah, yeah.
And so a friend of mine said, go on YouTube. So I did.
Yeah,
I
right.
went on
Yeah.
YouTube and found some very simple. And I just started small, like I drew a fish. I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Okay, so
And
that you're
really,
learning then. That's good.
well, what's interesting, what I figured out is art is a lot like math. Like when you're drawing, like
Mhm.
you either have a circle or a
Right.
square.
Right.
And so I think we have to get out of the mindset of I can't do it. Like, okay,
Yes,
I
yeah.
might not be, like Michelangelo, but I can draw something simple.
Yeah,
And
I'm not Thomas Kincaid or something like that.
oh yeah, Thomas Kincaid. I love his work.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah, I know what you're saying. You can't have that defeatist attitude. See, I was giving the defeatist attitude. I can't do it
uh-huh.
because I haven't tried. That's why I haven't really
Yeah.
tried. I haven't made an
Yeah.
earnest effort.
So
That's what.
I have a little can, and it's
Mhm.
called my I can. And
Okay.
as I've gotten older, it's like, it's like when you're like, I don't know if I can do that. And so it's like, at the end of the year, it's like I put in the I can. So I can write a book. So I wrote a book. I can learn, French, or I can, and I think I think as adults, we get so busy and we think like, yeah, we can have like an attitude like, I don't know if I can do that or not. But it's like, I have gotten to the point in my life, it's like, I know I'm not going to live forever. And it's like, there's things I want to try, and I may not be perfect at it, but at least I said I tried.
Exactly, and that's what I should do. I should stop like saying I can't do it. Just try
You
it
can
once
do
in a
it,
while.
Michael.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel it.
I
You
like
got
the
it
I
in you.
can. I like the I can. I like that.
Yeah, start an I can.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna get myself
And
a
then,
little can, put I can, and then put the little thing in there. Yeah, I can do
yeah.
this. This is what I want to do. So, yes, exactly. So that's the
And then,
perfect way. Yeah.
and then you could do like a kindness jar. So instead of like journaling every day, you can just like draw like, 2 sentences, like,
Very
and then
nice.
at the end of the year, you take those out and you can
Mm-mm.
put them all together. Like, okay, on this date, I did
Mm.
this and that. And it's like, we do that with kids to kind of encourage empathy.
Yeah.
with them, with anti-bullying stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
for the kids, it's like, wow, they look at the end of the year and they realize it's like, I did that. I did that. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. You don't
yeah,
realize it. It's much like writing a book, right? When you look back on your books, and I do this a lot of times with my novels, and I look at back my novel and go, oh, I really wrote that, didn't I? And I just
yeah.
like, whoa.
And then you kind of give yourself a pat on the back and go, see, I can do it.
Exactly, because we're always spending too much time thinking of the next project. We're never satisfied, and we do a project, and then we're saying, all right, well, I got to do this. You know?
Yeah.
So
You gotta relish in the like
you just got
the
to celebrate it.
positivity, right?
Mhm.
You gotta celebrate it.
Yeah,
Well, every
exactly.
day should be celebrated.
True.
My motto is every day's a gift, and
Exactly. Same with mine.
and
Yeah.
and be present.
Hmm.
So every day's a gift, be present. And even when we're not feeling our best, it's like there's a lot of people going through a lot worse than we are.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and be grateful, be thankful. Um, I'm just thankful for a lot of things in my life. And yeah, I could be like an Eeyore, but I tend to be more of a Winnie the Pooh, more
Yeah.
philosophical.
Yeah. That's a good choice. You either Winnie the Pooh or Eeyore. It's better to
Yeah.
be Winnie. It's better to be Winnie the Pooh. I
Or
agree.
some days I'm Tigger. I'm just like,
Jumping
I
up and
got so
down.
many ideas. Like,
Yeah, causing chaos. Yeah.
yeah,
All Pooh wants to have is a little bit of honey. That's what he cares about. A little bit of honey.
yeah,
And then he's
yeah. He
happy.
wants his honey.
Yeah.
And
Old
that's a
Pooh.
great story, Winnie the Pooh. If you read about the background of Winnie the Pooh, that
Oh yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
that's a fascinating story.
That is, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Cherise Arthur, thank you so much for joining us again. The books are Sierra and Star. That book is out on Amazon. And the next book will be Bella and the Queen's Ponies, which will be available in a couple of months. So thank you again for joining us here on Magical Books for Kids. It's been a pleasure again to have you.
Yeah. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thanks. And we want to remind people that this podcast and all our podcasts are free on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and our website, magiceverywhereinc.com. I am Michael John Sullivan. Join us again for another edition of Magical Books for Kids.
Thank you for listening to Magical Books for Kids, a podcast sponsored by Magic Everywhere INC, a company based in Florida, hosted by Michael John Sullivan. This is your place to hear the very best children's stories and an opportunity to get to know your favorite authors. Join us for another fun storytelling podcast next week.